Welcome to Popplers Music Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Gratton, and every episode we sit down with the voices shaping the future of music education, from classroom educators and university professors to composers and professional musicians who inspires the next generation of musicians. I hope you enjoy today's conversation. Welcome to the Popplers Podcast, Matt. For everybody watching, I want to give a little bit of a backstory. I've known Matt for years. We went to school together, dear friends. He's an excellent pianist. We met in the piano studio at the UND, so we go back quite a few years at this point. And over the years, he's been at Popplers and helped record overview videos on Yamaha pianos and North Dakota native. So welcome back, and thanks for being here. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Thank you, Josh. It's going to be my absolute pleasure to be back in Popplers Studios.
You got it. So, part of the reason I wanted to chat with you today and invited you on the podcast is because of your musical journey. And that's part of the point of our podcast, is to chat about everybody's musical paths. And as you know, there's so many different ways that pursuing music education, becoming a performer, becoming an educator, all of those different paths that you can go down in music post high school, through college, careers. It can be a windy path. It can be, nobody's path is, exactly the same. And I would say you have a unique one. So how did you get started in music? Where did you start? Where are you from?
Sure. I am from a little place called Fargo, North Dakota, if you've ever heard of it. And it was a wonderful place to grow up. I grew up outside of town a little bit. And then as far as piano goes, it was sort of a Christmas present. I was 8 or 9 years old, and then my parents graciously put me in piano lessons.
Wow, okay.
Listening back, I'm not sure if I ever had any particular talent. However, I do have proof of one recording of when I was 10 or 11 of me playing. It's called Good King Wenceslas, I think.
In the method book, I know it.
It's a famous tune. If you haven't heard it, check it out. And I listened back on that CD, and I heard some rhythm. I think I had something going for me even back then. A love for music, at the very least. For those of you watching who know a little bit about music, keeping rhythm can be one of the hardest things to do at the instrument. So I guess I was lucky to have good teachers when I was young. But the joke I always tell is that I started playing when I was 9, but I didn't really start practicing until I was 16.
So you started lessons right away at 8 and 9, or whatever Christmas that was? Okay. And who'd you take lessons with?
There was a few teachers. I don't even remember who my first teacher was. But anyway, I started taking lessons most seriously with Susan Nangle.
Okay.
Piano teacher in Fargo area.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so you had a couple teachers before Susan?
I did. I don't know if I'm the only one, but you can start out with a teacher, and sometimes you have to try out a few before you find a really great fit, something that's going to work for both people. And sometimes people's life situations change. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe there was a teacher who couldn't teach anymore. Yeah. Something along those lines.
Because I had one teacher all the way through, growing up until I went off to college.
And that's very common.
Yep.
That's very common. Whoever's kind of on the same street as you or something like that.
Yep, exactly.
Kind of how it goes.
So you didn't really take it seriously until you were 16, you said?
Not really.
Piano.
Yeah. So
do you play other instruments?
I was playing cello when I was
So you were in
9
orchestra
as well. I was, even in 5th grade when you can start orchestra. Okay. And I wanted to play the double bass, and my mom insisted that I play the cello. I know she's going to watch this later. I've thought about that moment a lot, actually. I do like the cello, but I still wonder if I wouldn't play the bass more to this day. I think they thought I was asking to play the bass because of, just because it was a ridiculous instrument, very big and everything like that. But
being a goofy kid.
Yeah. Maybe. But the bass is absolutely important and very cool instrument.
Yeah.
So I played high school orchestra, and if you play bass, you could probably make a little bit of money.
I always say the bass has a lot to say, and not everybody's listening.
Somebody should write that down.
Yep.
You could say that about a lot of things. And then when it came to piano, I was in lessons, but it was not until much later that I got over the hump, I call it. You have a long period of plateauing with little progress and without much investment on the student's part. oftentimes. And it was not until I was about 14 or 15 I discovered that classical music was actually fun to listen to. I had a long and winding path through punk rock music. I was a drummer in a punk rock band when I was 13.
Oh, what in the world? I didn't know that.
And
Oh, that's awesome.
we played in the underground scene in Fargo, North Dakota for a couple of years. We got booed off stage many times. And then I discovered classical music and decided that was really, really, really beautiful and cool. And I'm practicing this piano anyways. I might as well go and practice music that I like. And I wasn't ready for it, but I started playing music by Prokofiev and Ravel and Mussorgsky. Loved Mussorgsky. Pictures at an exhibition.
It's actually pretty young in the scope of students in this area to actually start listening to classical music seriously and find that on your own. You may have said it was, took a while, but to seriously start listening at 16, that's still pretty young. I didn't really start listening until towards the end of my college time.
That surprises
So
me.
early 20s.
You were in piano studio.
But not seriously listening all the time. Not really ingesting music, classical music, and listening to it seriously. Yep.
So for you, it was like saxophone. I know you play sax. You guys, by the way, this is going to be an interesting podcast for you because it's going to be just as much about Josh as it is about me. Because Josh and I were tight, and I love this guy. I love his mission. I love everything that he does. I keep in touch with him, and I try and learn from him every time I can. So you were in piano studio probably because you thought piano was just a good thing to study and because you could play.
I wanted to continue studying music. Yeah.
Got you.
Because in college I studied music and business, and I loved the pursuit of learning music. And I didn't know to what extent I would be engaged with music post-college, but I just knew that I wanted to learn. And, Dr. Skura was incredible to work with and inspiring to study with.
Very much so.
So that kept me going. But yeah, I didn't listen in the same way that you're talking about listening to artists at age 16. I didn't really start that until my early 20s, I'd say.
Well, here's an interesting story of a recent experience. I was chatting with a group, and one fella said that music just didn't have that same draw to him. And he liked it, but it just didn't have that same urgency. And I told him that sounds about right, and I often envy that at times because for me, music was drastically urgent. It was like everything became very important when I heard it. And I would even, my mother would try and talk to me in the car or something, or my sister, and I would turn the music up louder and tell them to be quiet when we were younger because it was just, you have to listen to it. And so I think that you have certain metrics like that with which you can measure a student's drive and aptitude in music. You can, if it feels important, if it feels like you should be listening to it, you're more likely to succeed, I think, because it draws you in. And it doesn't just mean nothing to you. You can tell every second matters when you're listening to music. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate when I was 16. I had a lucky situation. In my high school, there was an orchestra room, a choir room, and a band room, and a row of practice room pianos right there for anybody to use, and I took advantage of all three rooms. And then there was this choir room that had just acquired a new piano. I believe it was a Boston. And despite how I might feel about Boston sometimes, I'm not afraid to say stuff that's going to be unpopular. Just be ready for that, Josh. I'm not always a huge fan of Boston, but that particular Boston, I remember it was fun to play. I never got to play on a grand piano very regularly when I was in high school. I don't think a lot of kids do. And so I would stay after school. And I would practice a lot. I would practice several hours, not as much as I could have been or should have been, even then. But it definitely felt like it was something that was drawing me in all the time. There's a lot of factors that I give credit to besides just listening to recordings. Also, there was a very unique music composition course at my high school, which is not standard amongst high schools for kids to learn about composition and the actual structure of piano music, or music in general, is actually quite rare. It's quite rare and quite special. And so that, taught by the legendary John Severson, I would love it if he saw this, it was something that just pushed me, and then there was competitions. I tend to be a competitive person, and I was drawn to these piano competitions just for fun at first, just to see how I would do and how it would work out, and then I actually won a couple of them.
Now this is still age 16, 17?
You got it. Right before I graduated from high school, I
Okay.
won a couple of local competitions and happened to meet Dr. Segura, who we just talked about. And he was an influential person on me, and when the time came, it was a great joy of mine to go and study with him for several years at UND.
So it sounds like that age 16 to 18, you started listening, which I think once you really start listening to music, classical music in general, it's its own language, and you have to be able to understand it, and you have to ingest the body of work enough to be able to even understand it. So you started understanding and listening to the language. You had access to good educators and access to an instrument that not everybody does, like a baby grand. You know, I only got to play on them a couple times before I got to college, and then it's normally uprights, right? Unless you have one in your home or you have a place where you can go to it. So your school gave you access to an instrument that was inspiring.
Yeah.
And then you engaged in the competitive side of music, and that worked. It worked. That was an inspiring and a growth period for you.
Mm-hmm. It worked in what sense?
Educationally, it pushed you. You grew a lot in those couple years, it sounds like.
Yes,
As a
competitions.
musician.
I remember once I heard somebody say competitions are a necessary evil. Necessary evil. We don't like to be competing with each other, and yet it can be a great source of inspiration when you're working towards a goal.
Yeah. Well, it gives you something to work towards, like you said. It's not only the one or two recitals that a piano teacher may have throughout the year, right? So then you go and you have something to work towards, so you're performing. It pushes you to excel. If you're competitive, then it works well because it gives you an extra drive because you want to win. So there's incentive, right? Maybe there's a prize, maybe there's recognition, whatever it may be. And then you also get to see your peers, right? It's a place to gather. Now, the unfortunate evil, like you said, is the fact that it's competing on music, right? And there's a whole body of thought and feelings around that.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
It's very subjective
Yeah.
to say one person's music is better than another.
Yeah. Okay, so you were in a rock band, you learned cello, and you learned piano. What about choir? Were you in choir?
Very briefly. I was afraid to sing back then. I'm much more comfortable singing now after some of the experiences that I've had.
How about your parents between the age of 9 and 18? Did they force you to practice? Did they just encourage you? What was your parental dynamic like as it related to your music education?
So this is a great question, and one thing that I know that I can contribute to this conversation is the body of experience that I've had helping young people learn how to practice. I've found a method that if I have the right kid in front of me, we can usually figure out some way to make practicing a part of their life. You know? So now I'm on the piano faculty at the new music school in Chicago's Gold Coast, and I've been teaching there for several years now and have raised several advanced students, and I'm very excited to watch them practice all the time. I actually began teaching here in Grand Forks. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I think my first teaching job was here at
Yeah, it
Popplers
was.
Music.
Yeah, yep. It was right when I started working on the lesson program here, and you joined the team, and so did Mia.
Yeah.
Yep.
There we go. And so teaching was always kind of something, it's a mysterious world, everybody. When you try and learn music on your own, it can feel like a complete mystery, winding path with no clear solutions or answers. Every once in a while, we're fortunate to find people who can give us clear, precise explanations of what the piano is, how it works, how you're supposed to listen to it. And that can clear up a lot of confusion quickly. But for myself, and I don't think I'm the only one, piano was, I don't get it. You just show up and you just kind of keep playing it until you kind of figure out something that works for you. I mean, it takes a lot of bravery to just go in and be confused and
And make mistakes.
make a lot of mistakes. And as Bob Ross said, there's no mistakes, only happy accidents. And you can take that to the bank. I'll tell you, I have a distinct memory of when I was right in that 9 to 15, somewhere in that early tender age, probably before punk music,
So like
probably
10, 11, 12, somewhere in
10,
there.
11, 12. I was sitting and practicing, and I just felt so uncomfortable. It was like I would play, and I just knew that this was not what it was supposed to sound like, even though I hadn't really heard much music, which is a huge bummer. If I just would have heard it, I could have had something to aim for, but we didn't know. Just go practice, do what your teacher told you to do. Well, it doesn't really work that way. You have to figure out what you want to do. So anyways, I have this distinct memory of sitting there and just being completely uncomfortable and unsure of what to do and wondering how on earth I'm supposed to play this. And it was a sort of fundamental curiosity that never went away. It didn't make me practice more at first, but when I got to college and right at the end of high school, I realized that there was this real ambition inside of me to understand how the piano worked. It's been a very much a mechanical journey as far as the piano itself is concerned. Music and music composition, that's more of a spiritual love, something that instills a great sense and awareness of beauty inside of me. For example, when I was listening to the operas of Wagner when I was in high school, I remember distinctly loving the prelude to Tristan, and that piece, among many others, performances by Vladimir Horowitz and Evgeny Kissin and Christian Zimmermann. I don't think I had listened much to Martha Argerich yet. Many, many other greats, though, who I had been listening to. I started to just become aware of how beautiful it was what they were doing. But there was this whole thing that I couldn't actually make those sounds. And that's when I had to start spending hours in the practice room.
Yeah. So you started hearing and understanding the language, and you couldn't speak it yet.
I think that's about right. I wanted to. I think so.
Okay. So I want to ask a question before we get into like your college years. Were you interested in mathematics as a teenager?
I was good at it, just kind of by accident.
Yeah.
Luckily, mom and dad put me in the gifted classes when the opportunity arose, and I showed up. Well, they made me show up. I was notorious for sleeping late, even back in elementary school. But then high school came, and me and my precocious friends, we were able to get our math homework done before we left school, and it was just sort of a natural language that I spoke. Mm-hmm. And Josh is asking me this because I went on at the University of North Dakota to gain a bachelor's degree in math and a master's degree in math, which, by the way, I've been thinking about this conversation. One thing I think musicians should know, especially in college, is that depending on your situation, a double major is usually not a bad idea.
That's what I did.
It's definitely not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. It gives you more options.
We love options, Josh.
So anyway, so now the reason I wanted to ask that is, like you said, you went on and you studied music and math in college. Tell me what it was like for you, and what does your educational journey now look like through undergrad?
It was chaotic, I think, for many of us. The difference with me was that it was also filled with lots and lots and lots of piano. Lots of piano. I think 17, 18, 19, 20s, that was some of the most foundational practicing that I ever did. It was not the most practice I ever did. That definitely got beat this past 5 years. Mm-hmm. I think since 2019, I've been practicing far more than the 6 years prior, yet not as foundationally.
What do you mean by foundational?
Well, when you've never played Beethoven before, or when you've never played Chopin before, you will learn much, much more about their language, yes, the way that they write, their style, the first time than any of the subsequent times. It's just a fact. Now, you'll get way better at it later, and you'll learn more of the nuances and the details, but the groundwork and the foundational work is always laid the very first time. So that's something that I think young people can get excited about too, is I am going to learn a new piece by a certain composer. First time I ever played that composer. Mm-hmm. That's a very exciting opportunity. It's a very exciting opportunity to dig into a whole world that particular composer was living in. I think a lot of times assignments or opportunities feel like, oh, I gotta go play Chopin now. I gotta go play Beethoven now. But it's truly a remarkable opportunity to play
it is.
Music anytime you can, especially on nice instruments.
Yeah. Absolutely. So your time in college was foundational for setting yourself up to grow as a musician. What else was foundational about it? Describe that a little bit.
Sure. So, okay, you're curious about that. So,
Was it things you learned from Dr. Segura that you changed your practice approach and the way you started practicing? It set you up to kind of get to that next level? Is that what you're...
So, yes. Any music learning is going to happen fastest and easiest, and probably the best way to learn music is through a teacher. I couldn't imagine learning it without one. I really couldn't. I mean, I think it happens. It happens here and there, but even great talents who start without a teacher usually find one pretty quickly, and it gets way better. Because we learn from each other's experiences. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you can have the privilege of hearing somebody explain basics of piano principles to you using clear and concise language through proper experimentation and demonstration, it will change your life. It will change your life because you'll learn 10 years worth of experience in one day or less, and you'll take it for granted. You'll say, I shouldn't cross finger 3 over finger 4. I was doing that all the time when I was practicing on my own, but my teacher told me you should go under with the thumb instead, or something like that. I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody, but if you have the privilege of getting your scales taught to you from day one with the correct finger numbers, you're going to be set up for a lot of success. So yeah, when I was in college, I was sure had the drive to practice a lot. I was very eager to learn new repertoire, but having a teacher was instrumental in saying, okay, thank you for bringing me this, but you completely missed this opportunity, or this is actually a really nice way that you worked on what I asked you to work on. So now let's go even further. And my favorite students to work with, the ones that vibe with my method the most, they're just going along and they're growing. And growing is kind of chaotic. It's like a plant. It just grows whenever it feels like. And after a while, you've got to kind of trim it up a little bit and get it growing, get it going so it can grow even further. Otherwise, you've just got this big bush on your hand. And piano playing is a lot like that. It's a lot like that. I'll say 2 analogies here about piano practicing. Yeah, 2 analogies about piano practicing that I like. This one, which I just came up with, is that, well, I didn't just come up with this, but the piano teacher brings us back on track, or it's like imagine all of the different metrics that we have for analyzing our performances, how they got better. And imagine them all on like a screen, and there's these bars that you excelled at, or like, this is gonna sound crazy, okay? Did you ever go to one of those like arcades where they had like the squirt gun and you shot it at a target, and if you shot it at the target, the like thing would start going up? And so like your job was to shoot your target and get your thing higher than everybody else was. So now take that game and combine it with whack-a-mole. Whack-a-mole was the whack-a-mole analogy I stole from a different teacher I had once. Every time you fix one mistake over here, and we could talk about this too, piano practicing and making mistakes, it's okay. But you would whack this mistake, I got it. And then there's that other mistake that just popped up, and you're like, come on, I just fixed that mistake. And then you go over here to whack that one, and look at that same mistake that you just whacked, it's right there again this time you tried it, okay? It's fun. It's fun. Kids, listen, making mistakes is great. We want them to happen. The fun part is trying to get them not to happen somehow. So you got that game, and then you got the squirt gun game. And so in my imagination, I have piano practicing is kind of a little bit of both. You're aiming at this target, and you have 10 targets. But instead of them just kind of popping up at you, it's like you progress in that one specific thing that you're focusing on. And it goes up and up and up and up and up, but all these other things are going down and down and down and down and down. And you've got to go quick, run over to the next one and focus. And then while you're focusing on that one, the one that you just did is already going down. And so piano practicing is about trying to get all of the different metrics that we have to succeed going up at the same consistent time. And that's through years. through years, we're focusing on our metrics, learning about things, maybe even adding new things that we hadn't thought about, and controlling like an octopus, controlling all of these things back and forth. Oh, I gotta play that staccato. Oh, but now I'm not playing that in the right tempo. My 16th notes are slipping. That sounded weird. And my dynamics are just all over the place. You build and build and build and build and build. So not only do teachers get us on track, but you can go even deeper by thinking about it like the game, where everything needs to go up at the same level. Oftentimes, we don't realize what we can be thinking about, and we're focused on a narrow subset of the things we could be thinking about. We're thinking about that one thing that one teacher told you at that one master class. They said it in kind of a mean way. And now it's all I can think about is that one stupid thing that years down the line you realized was never that big of a deal at all. And if they just would have said it in a way that was a little bit less mean, maybe I wouldn't have gotten so hung up on that one particular thing. So here I am focusing on my 3 things, and I'm pressing that button, and I'm all the way at the top, and I'm pressing it more. I'm like, come on, give me more staccato. You know what I mean? Or the things that we were trying to aim for were always, for me, super ephemeral. It was always like, and it was super personal. I was never thinking about what was actually making sound. It was always like, I feel really good when I play that section. I'm going to play it again and feel even better. I'm going to play it again. I'm going to feel even better. And a teacher is like, great job. Let's focus on the other stuff again, because all of your other metrics have gotten further and further and further away from where we need them to be, and you're too narrowly focused on this one particular thing. That was a lot of my practicing journey. I hope that resonates with somebody out there who feels like they're stuck and they are improving in the same way all the time, but the thing that people keep saying that you need to improve on, you can't figure out a way forward. Just keep trying and keep trying to change the script a little bit. Say, I'm gonna focus on this now instead, and I'm gonna let go of that for now. Let go of that for now.
Yeah, it's a really good analogy. It's a good story.
Trying. Just keep trying.
That makes sense. For those that don't know you in your undergrad, it's also interesting to hear this in hindsight too, because I got to watch you get better throughout undergrad, and I could see where maybe these different areas were attention for you.
Here's one that a lot of people get hung up on, is trying to play fast. So that's one area in which our piano music can excel. And for many, many students, it's the only one that matters. Gotta play fast. We're partly to blame as teachers, because the second kids get good at something, we're like, okay, let's turn on the metronome and let's ramp up the tempo about 20 clicks. I'm guilty of it myself. I do it all the time. And so sometimes my kids, they come and they're like, I'm like, play this piece for me, and then they're like rushing and they're trying to play as fast as they can. I'm like, let's play slow, and they literally can't. They don't know how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they spent the entire week practicing too fast. Throughout college, did you continue studying cello?
I did continue to study cello.
So you were doing all of that practice time on piano and all of that attention and focus and studying math, and you studied cello.
And I had a secondary instrument. I never understood the cello, not really. Towards the end of college, thanks to the help of a great teacher, I had some breakthroughs and had some fun performances. And that's about all I have to say about the cello. However, I will say, if there's any aspiring cellist out there, you can also check out historical cello performance practice. Investigate the viol and the viola da gamba, if you're in the upper strings, and listen to the lovely, lovely music of Marais, and to any movie buffs out there, the movie Tous les matins du monde was a recommendation to me from several years in the past. All the Mornings in the World, fabulous film about a viol player that made me want to go back and learn the cello all over again. But that's about all I have to say about the cello.
So when you're learning multiple instruments, does that help the other instrument in your progress and your growth? Or is the time taken to learn a second or a third instrument deterring from one instrument? Are there synergies? Is it a trade-off? What's that been like for you?
That is such a tough question to answer. it would be a little bit foolish of me to say, looking back, the practicing that I did on the cello never helped my piano. I think that's certainly untrue. At the very least, one thing that was certainly to this day instrumental in my learning of the piano was chamber music. Chamber music is, using the analogy of music as a language, the equivalent of having a conversation. Playing piano solo is like delivering a monologue. And you can ask any actor who's done play acting that you probably have to get good at dialogue before you get good at monologue. Although you can do a little bit of both if it's really your thing. And so chamber music will teach you how to play, and playing another instrument is a gateway to understanding other people's problems. When they're playing in chamber music, I had the lovely opportunity to play in a trio in college called the Red River Trio. To any locals in the area, keep your eye out for this wonderful ensemble, which travels to Japan every year. In my group, in almost all of the groups, they have a cellist alongside the piano and some other solo type instrument. And when I'm playing, because of the experiences that I've had playing in orchestra and playing cello, I'm so much more tuned into the conversation. Technically speaking, it's so completely different that I just can't really see a lot of crossover, but the musical elements that we aim for in our ear, in our listening, and in our collaboration with other players, working with it gave me the opportunity to work with conductors, which has been of vital importance to me. That was because of my secondary instrument. Piano's not the only instrument, and it doesn't really give you access to those things as often as the other instruments do. The other instruments are almost always playing together. Pianos are almost always playing by themselves.
Yeah. Well, I had a similar experience with saxophone, right? I was getting to play in concert band and jazz band and small ensemble, large ensemble, chamber music. I had a little bit of chamber music experience versus piano. Yeah, it's so different. And you only have one note versus working with 10 fingers and an orchestral instrument, if you will. So it's just such a different experience. Okay. Did you compete in college? Because when you were a teenager, you had access to instruments, you had good teachers, you had a drive to compete, you listened to a lot of music. What was the competition like in college? What did you do?
The competition in college...
Assuming you continued on, you were shaking your head, so you did.
I did, yes. There was some formative competitions for me in my undergrad, without a doubt. I had the opportunity to perform in several concerto competitions. For many of you who are in the know, a concerto, or who are not in the know, a concerto is a piece for soloist and large orchestra. And it's very common for these solo pieces to be of a difficult nature, and one which is a bit of a bravura showpiece, where you have to demonstrate your technical prowess and exciting musical abilities on stage in front of this, supported by this orchestra. I loved them, and what I've come to feel now is that the concerto is really one of the most powerful and important mediums for artistic expression. I love listening and playing to piano concerti. I love many other instrumental concertis as well. And I've had the pleasure of accompanying several concerti as an orchestral reduction, which is a common job that piano players can have, alongside other types of reductions like choral accompanying and concerto competitions, and then even like opera coaching, vocal collaboration. Oftentimes we're playing orchestral reductions. And all of this kind of grew out of college. I don't know if I did learn about concerto competitions in high school.
Okay.
I did my first concerto competition in high school. I did not Grieg, I did Bach D minor, which is still to this day one of my favorite concerti by Bach. And I had the opportunity to perform that with my high school in college. I'm just remembering this. In high school, with the orchestra in high school, I got to play the first movement of Bach D minor on stage after doing the concerto competition. I was just in the right place at the right time, and I started to fall in love with that feeling of being up there and just laying it all out there.
Yeah. Well, and your public school educators at the time were willing to help on your piano education by allowing you to do the concerti. I mean, it was such a good experience for the whole group.
Yes, I think that
the educational dynamic
my orchestra teacher at the time even though I was, supposed to be focusing on cello and orchestra, she saw the attention that I gave to the piano, and she knew that it wasn't going to be that big of a risk to ask me to play. And so she gave me that opportunity. It was really special. Yeah.
That's cool.
And then in college, I did a few more concerto competitions, which led in many wonderful ways to other opportunities, like performing with local orchestras by invitation. It's continued to this very day, where I now live in Chicago. I'm still competing on a very infrequent basis. And then the concerto, though, is something I still hold near and dear to my heart.
And it was an important educational dynamic in college.
It was always something I looked forward to. It was really, probably more so than I knew at the time, it was a unifying feature of my piano practicing. It was always towards that goal of the concerto competition and other smaller competitions specifically. Yeah.
Sure. Before we move on to post-undergrad, you've currently been studying mathematics this entire time.
Yes.
And I know some other musicians that have also studied mathematics. What is it about math and music that seems to have a correlation of interest and aptitude? How are they correlated? Why are you studying both of them? What is that? What's that dynamic between studying math and music?
Sure. I often answer this question with two answers. Part one is sort of a negative answer. Outside of the very, very important analysis of wave equations, which underlie all of the sounds that we hear, I haven't been able to find like a true application of important math concepts. A lot of math is left out when you study music. For example, if you're in the know, is there really a need to understand probability and statistics outside of a kind of intuitive level, like studying your repetitions and doing like a statistical analysis of your practicing and how many mistakes you made and counting methods and that sort of thing? It's pretty loose. It's loose. And, like differential equations, is that something that any pianist ever really uses? It's not. Although I would be open to hearing where the applications are. With that being said, mathematics has been an inspiration for many composers. Just to name a couple of my favorites, Yannis Xenakis. I mean, you could even go back to like Arnold Schoenberg. So one of the most important applications of math to music was in 12-tone serialism, which is a highly rigorous matrix-oriented method. But even Pythagoras, right, was very interested in music and the spheres and magical patterns, the golden mean, and this is all at the foundation of music. All of these composers, and I myself in college had the opportunity to apply mathematical methods to a composition. One of my favorite things I ever got to work on was my math capstone, where I combined matrix methods and they had certain invariances that result from rotations on the Klein-4 group, and I was able to use those as a sort of like inspiration for a piece that involved synthesized whale sounds. Now, this piece is available on my YouTube channel in case anybody's interested. But that's the negative answer. The answer is not as much as people think in terms of actual practice. Now, in terms of who we are as pianist mathematicians, I'm fortunate enough to teach right now a very gifted young student who is both attuned to the music and attuned to the math and science. And I think what we can say most assuredly is that students who like math or students who like piano, the thing that they have in common is that they notice things. They notice little things everywhere all the time. And small changes mean a lot to people who notice things. It leads to several personality traits, such as OCD, or somebody who micromanages things, usually very analytical person. And you wonder what things look like if you just shift them a little bit this way or that way. And mathematicians are doing that with numbers and other patterned concepts. Musicians are doing it with the instruments that they see in front of them. Sometimes they're attuned to theory as well, notes and harmonies and other pattern concepts, they're just sort of fundamentally interesting to somebody who notices things. The idea of like a seventh chord is not something that terrifies you when you are used to hierarchical abstract concepts, because you can just open a new box in your brain and shove it all the chords into the chord box. That's a loose
It's
introduction
a thoughtful
to
answer.
The
Yeah,
subject.
seriously. Really
People
thoughtful
ask that
answer.
question a lot, actually.
Yeah. And as you were talking about it, it seemed to me, because I have other areas that I've studied, but math was never a serious interest of mine. But for those of you who don't know, I used to work construction. And I love learning how things work, and I wouldn't mind, like, if I had time and money and no responsibility, building a house sounds like a blast to me. And I would, every step of the way that I'd run into a problem, I would love to figure that out. But I have no interest in studying math in the same way that you have. I also have other interests when it comes to nuances of business. I love learning new aspects about business and business theory or practical application or problem solving in that way. So that's interesting, because it's not something where it's like, if you're good at music and you have an aptitude for music, you therefore have an aptitude for math. But there is a set of people, like you said, that have those two aptitudes and the interesting correlations that the personality then comes with. That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay. You finished your undergrad, and now you're going to go and you studied and got a master's degree, 2 master's degrees, 3 master's degrees. What's your graduate studies look like? What did you do? What's this chapter of Matt's life look like as it relates to music education?
Sure, it's hardly over, so I can maybe,
up to this point,
I can maybe just provide a few glimpses and pieces of advice to anybody who might be considering graduate school in math or in music. There was a pandemic, and for many of us, it was the right thing to move home. And I took a break from my music studies in Chicago in the official sense. So I had a bit of space where I could officially go and pursue and finish a master's degree in mathematics. I had started earlier. So it was a gap year where I was teaching piano in North Dakota. It was a little bit of math masters. I just thought topology class sounded really fun, and my friend was in it, and so I went and just watched the classes, and then they told me I could get a degree and make money for just doing the thing that I wanted to do anyways. And so I became a GTA and a tutor, and then never planned on finishing really, but then went and started graduate school in Chicago at the Chicago College of Performing Arts, Roosevelt University. At the time I was studying with Edward Auer and his wife Junhua. The pandemic happened, I moved back home, I finished that master's degree from before, had a lovely time writing my thesis, went back to Chicago for the next 4 years, and that's where I've been since, finishing my first master's degree in piano and then pursuing a performance diploma in piano with Adam Neiman. The performance diploma is a it doesn't have as many background requirements. It's just for purely anybody who's artistic enough to study with one of the faculty at the school, and it can really be anybody, and you can earn a certificate for doing it. It's a common option, and one which allowed me to pursue my dreams, to practice a lot in just right at the time when it mattered the most. I had finally started to grasp that piano playing I had been telling you about earlier, which had just eluded me for years. I was finally feeling like I might have figured something out here. And I
remember when you started telling me about that, when you felt like you were finally making breakthroughs and being able to do exactly what you want on piano, being able to ingest music at a way faster rate and digest the information, and yeah.
I'm glad you remember that. It was right at the end of the masters, and I was like, I think for a lot of us, we're just like.
I have to ask, from age 8 or 9, starting music education, to finally feeling like you're speaking the language and you're able to articulate what you're actually
about
trying to do?
25, 26.
Okay, so.
Yep, so that's about 15 years.
Okay, 15
just
years.
Trying.
And how many hours of practice?
Towards
in general? Do you think you
Again,
put in
like
at that
I
time?
started practicing when I was 16.
Yeah. So I mean, how many hours just roughly do you think you put in up to that point to finally feel like, wow, I'm finally getting my music to come across the way I want. I'm finally articulating things the way I want. My fingers are doing what I want. The mechanics are working. I mean, and it makes sense.
I would say definitely over 10,000.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely over 10,000.
Interesting.
A lot of hours. And more and more.
And that's practice. That's not listening, attending concerts, being in a chamber music group, performing. That's just practice, you think? Or is that everything all
That's
encompassing?
10,000 hours just purely in the practice room.
Yeah, that's not everything else. all the
Maybe
other
even
experiences.
just working on solo repertoire. The collaborative
Yeah.
repertoire is even another bag.
Yeah.
Another
I
basket.
should also mention, if you haven't heard Matt perform, we'll put a link to your YouTube channel, maybe a couple of our overview videos that Matt was gracious enough to do on Yamaha pianos, and you should definitely listen to him. At that time, you were going through all of Rachmaninoff's preludes, right? So that's what you were playing a lot on. Yeah, so you should definitely listen to Matt perform. It's just a delight, and it's remarkable.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay, so that brings you up to this point. That catches us up. That's Matt's music education journey as it is right now.
That's about it.
And why are you in Grand Forks right now?
Oh,
You live in Chicago. Why are you here?
Grand Forks is the place to be. I love to pack my schedule full, and fortunately, I've hardly skipped a beat since I got back to Grand Forks for this fun little trip, heading back to Chicago here.
But you were here to perform.
I was. I played a lovely concert on Monday, also accompanying a concerto, the flute and harp double concerto by Mozart. It was
Very
a
nice.
fun gig. A friend asked me, and I flew all the way here basically just to do it, although I've been planning a trip anyways.
Yeah. So I've got some other questions. After all of these years of study and accomplishing what you have with graduate degrees and competitions and making it in Chicago as a musician, what do you think of that journey? What do you think of that path of studying music so far? Not only what do you think of it, why is it important to study music?
Well, I think for a few of us who have that draw towards the sound and who just need the music in their life, we talk a lot about the hours and hours and hours of practicing. But for many of us, it's a great opportunity because even for a little bit of time, you get to live a musical life. You get to live a life in music. It means that you you've already alluded to this. You're practicing. You got to pay your dues. But alongside that, you have more information. You have more things in common with other musicians. And so you go to concerts, which is something, for many of us, we wanted to do. You're right. We love to go to concerts. It was like the only thing I wanted to do for so long. I just was like, yes, I get to listen to this person play. It always takes me to a special place. Now, only once in a while for me listening to music is that special place, like the great imaginary landscape that I always think about. A lot of the time for me when I listen to music, it's about, oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. Oh, why do they do it like that? What does that sound? Is that how I heard it before? It's very, very active. It's very work-oriented. It's stressful even to listen to music. But I've gotten to live a musical life. And for me, that was great, and still is great. And it's an investment that I paid in so that I could have a musical life. And now I got it. I'd say my life is pretty musical. If that's what it's about, great. What I would love to chit-chat with you about is, what do you see as the landscape for any music lovers in your audience, music aficionados who wanted to take on the music major challenge, who couldn't help it but go and declare that major in music, and to who maybe are now considering formal graduate study? Let's talk about how they can set themselves up for success.
You know better than I. I didn't go on and get my graduate degree.
Well, and we could, what's the reason for you not to get a graduate degree? When did you decide you didn't want to go get a graduate degree?
Yeah, I had those conversations with my professors. I studied with two different saxophone professors in college, and both of them encouraged / at least just let me know that if you would like to, they said if you would like to go and get a graduate degree, I would support that, and you are proficient enough, and I see that you could do it, and I think it would be a path that you would excel at. And here's the options that you could go and do, and so that was nice. And then same with Dr. Segura, said that I was at the point where if I decided to go that route, that he could see success, and this is what it would look like, and depending on your goals. So that was definitely nudged. And then on the business side, my professors also said, well, I mean, everybody knows about an MBA, right? It's a very common degree to go and get. And for some people, it could be the educational aspect. It could be trying to earn more income by getting a graduate degree, whatever the decision may be. But for me, I had more of an entrepreneurial desire. And I didn't think that going to a graduate degree was going to get me there quicker or get me there with any more benefit. So I opted not to do the graduate degree, but knowing that later on in life I may do it. And I still have an interest in it, just the educational aspect of it. I love learning. And so there's a part of me that would love that pursuit. I would do it in music, not business. We were talking about this the other day, just learning music and studying music and how amazing that opportunity is, and just that path and how enjoyable it is. I may get a master's degree in music one day if I can apply and get into a school and time allows and all that. But right now I'm completely committed to running Popplers and everything that goes with that. There's no space for doing that right now. But so that was my path. I just didn't think that it was going to fit my goals. Again, the entrepreneurial path, as opposed to if you're in education, if you're teaching in a public school setting, or if you have interest in teaching in a university, it can absolutely make sense to get a master's degree. It can bump you up in the pay scale. It can make you more marketable. It can help you land a job that fits your goals. Yeah, on the education side. On the performance side, it seems like it gives the opportunity to focus on yourself and practice more, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like. You mentioned that not only did you get a master's degree, but then there's this certificate that not everybody knows about, or I didn't know about it until you started doing it. And you said it gave you the space to study for another year. And it probably gave you access to a tuition waiver. Did they help pay for your life?
They
did.
It
costs money to live in Chicago and not work and be able to practice.
Yeah,
So
the diploma is not quite like a DMA or a doctoral degree where there's not a stipend, but there was significant scholarships,
Sure.
both in the master's and in the diploma, that made it
Yeah.
possible for me.
So in that case, it's not necessarily that you're studying these graduate degrees because you think it's going to equal more pay, or it's not like a master's in education where, like I said, in a public school setting bumps you up in a pay scale, and every state's different, and you can kind of look at it that way. It's more about the intellectual study and the pursuit and the growth of getting to study music, and that's a wonderful path too, and I can see myself going for that reason. So yeah, it just depends. Depends on what you're studying.
For a lot of us, I imagine, for myself this was the case especially, I think what it was more than anything was I just knew that my playing was going to evolve. It was going to. And I had to be there for that. I had to let it happen. There was just an intense awareness for me that I was probably going to learn something by, moving to a city with a ton of different stuff going on and a lot of different things to see and people to meet, studying with top musicians, and sinking in hours and hours and hours. It's kind of funny looking back. I have a lot of stories to share, of course, but what I remember the most about the last 5 years was the practice room. Let's talk about practicing, Josh.
All right.
What were some of your favorite techniques for practicing piano?
Well, similar to you, it was a huge focus about how to learn how to practice in college. It seems like that was probably 3/4 of my educational journey in undergrad, was learning how to be efficient with practice time. And not only bumping up quantity of hours, but how to make those hours as efficient as possible. And now after college, not having as much time to practice when I sit down, I try to be as efficient as I can. I'll listen to a piece ahead of time so that I have it in my ear. I'll try to learn the chords by ear, and I'll try to learn the melody in my head so that when I go to actually play, or start studying the score, I should say, practice, not play. When I go to practice, I took a note from you. You said that you've been practicing so much and you won't even touch the piano until you figure out your fingering, because you don't want to play a fingering incorrectly once. And when you told me that, I was like, wow, that's a whole nother layer of being detailed and efficient. So now I do that too. I kind of look through the score and see if there's anything tricky. And yeah, but that's a journey in itself, like you said. It's the bush that grows and then the teacher refines in, and you have to put in hours of inefficient practice to become efficient. Nobody just starts efficient. So you have to get this quantity of output out of the way before you can start refining anything. And that's with anything in life.
You have to learn about yourself before you can practice efficiently, because efficiently for me is not the same as efficiently for you. And so it doesn't matter what makes practicing efficient for you. I have to feel it for myself. And not only do I have to want to play, it's one thing to know how to be efficient, but it's another thing to want to be efficient.
Mm-hmm. And actually do it, because it takes a little bit more discipline to be efficient and effective with that. And, that comes with maturity, right? Both in life and also your musicianship. Maturity
and time pressure. Sometimes we have to be efficient because there's no other choice.
Yeah, your back's up against the wall. It's like, I got to learn this. It has to happen. And it may force you to practice in a way that that you should have been doing the entire time anyway. And then once you do it, it's like, oh, this is actually better.
That's something that not all people get to feel when they study music, is the responsibility. That was something that our teacher was, I think, very good at providing for students, was always the feeling like music was an important responsibility in their lives. And I think that's something we got to cultivate in our students. So this message would go out to all the piano teachers out there. It shouldn't be a casual thing for most kids. And even if they say they want it to be casual, they almost shouldn't be allowed the option. They have to feel the urgency, even if it's something they know they won't do professionally. Do it because it's important. Music is crucial. That's how we have to make people feel. That's how it felt to me, just kind of on accident, was like, all these recordings that we heard. It was like there was a reverence to the person who had made the recording. Like, whoa. And you can hear it all the time in the discourse about the different players and stuff like that. The one friend of mine used to say that all of the classical musician recordings that we would listen to, they formed a hierarchy of demigods to us. And it was like, did you hear so-and-so's recording of the Liszt B minor sonata? And it was like, you have to hear Van Cliburn or whoever it was. That still continues to this day with some of my geekier piano friends. These recordings are very important to us, and that urgency is something that I communicate even to my youngest students. So practicing is a good topic. As you were talking there, I had another question. What do you think about somebody who's not going to take piano as far as you have, or as far as I have even? Because it's no secret, Matt's better at piano than I am. You put more time in. Incredible. Really what you've gotten to is the minor leagues, as you call it. I call it the minor leagues. Yeah. So what about somebody just enjoying the skill of playing an instrument as an adult? What do you think about somebody who gets to an intermediate / early advanced level and enjoys it for themselves? What do you think about that path? I have a lot to say about that. That was one of the things I was hoping we would talk about. All ages. I have made this joke many times. I will make it again. If you're an adult student who wants to play piano, it's never too late. It's never too late. I have taught people well over 60 from beginning, scratch, and it happens. You can do it. I have to interject a story quick. So we've done Costco events, Yamaha and Costco. So Yamaha and Costco have a national program where if you are a Yamaha dealer for pianos, you can represent Yamaha at Costco, and you set up for 10 days at a time, and there's a deal for Costco members, and it's a sales promotion. And I've manned the entire 10 days multiple times before, and you get to meet a lot of people. And there was this one gentleman stands out to me because he walked by, and then he walked back, and I kind of saw him, walk by and kind of walk back, and I'm guessing 80s. I believe he said 80s is how old he was. And he said, you know what? I haven't thought about this for about 20 years, but as I'm walking by the piano, I remember about 20 years ago, I looked at a piano and I said, I could never learn. It's too late. I'm too old. And he said, now that I'm 80, I'm looking at this and I'm realizing what 20 years was. I could have learned it between that thought and now. And I could have done that again between age 40 and 60.
And he said, and I'm going to do it again. I'm probably too old. And that was all he said to me, and he walked away. I said, that was a very interesting
philosophy.
Yeah, that was
Middle
an
of the
interesting
day
little...
at Costco.
Yeah. So I tell people
if
that.
If you're in Fargo, Moorhead, every once in a while you're out shopping and you're in the freezer section, you might be surprised to find a huge row of pianos. It happened to me. It can happen to you. The piano sticks out to people in the weirdest times. And piano, it's not just piano. Somebody tell me, I have a friend who is like, he's a piano technician now. And piano technicians, that's a whole nother world of obsession and noticing things. There's nothing better than piano. He's like convinced it's like it is the most interesting thing that humans have ever done. And I'm tempted to agree with him sometimes. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there, but piano does have this special draw to people.
Does have a special draw.
I don't get it.
Yep.
There's a sort of perfection, systematic perfection inside of the piano that makes it very attractive. Now, you can also go and read Oliver Sacks in his book Musicophilia. He'll talk about how one day a person woke up with an indescribable urge to listen to music. Sometimes it's any music, just put it in my ears. But sometimes it's very specific, like I have a need to move to New York City to hear all of this Renaissance music by one specific composer, and I need to hear it live, and I need to hear it right now. Stuff can happen neurologically, where switches can get turned on in our brain, and all of a sudden we have this predisposition. And I swear I've seen people who this has happened to. It's quite rare. But music is certainly an electrical neurological phenomenon. And outside of the serious, objective study of it, inside where we understand music, it's very base level, but it's also very high level. And all the way throughout, I think music it's there from top to bottom. And I've seen it happen where somebody mid-career, this crucial stage of their life, piano's never really been that big of a priority. And it's like all of a sudden they just want to practice for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. There are some people I've seen, I'm almost wondering, like, should you be practicing that much?
Is this someone you met in Chicago?
Yeah. You just see stuff, and I'm like, you're practicing a lot. Like, what's going on? Like, maybe it's that neurological phenomenon. So It's like, don't hold yourself back. Now, on the flip side of that, when you flip that switch on, sometimes it'll also flip the music sounds horrible switch on. And if you let's say like a car door slams too close to your head one day and you get shocked or something, maybe you had a genetic predisposition to it and you ate the right thing at lunch that day, all of a sudden music sounds like horrible car accidents to you. Crashing, banging sounds. Especially when it's loud. When it's soft, I can let it happen, but I don't like it. That he describes that in his book as well. It can happen to anyone.
Love to read the book.
It can happen to anyone. It can happen to you too. And so I always tell my adult students it's never too late. One thing I've learned about adult students, myself and several other faculty members at New Music School were very passionate about adult students. My colleague Dana Brown and I are regularly sharing insights about the adult students that we teach and the best strategies to teach adult students things. The adult student, as far as I can tell, has only one thing in common. Of all of the adult students, the one thing they have in common is that they need to be very restrictive on the amount of repertoire they choose to pursue at the same time. That is kind of like the limiting factor when you're an adult. You got a lot of things going on. Narrow yourself down to just one or two pieces. It'll make a huge difference in your progress. I've seen it. I've been guilty of handing adult students too much music at one time, and it is almost always a setback. If you can really narrow your focus and keep something going for longer with consistency, you'll see more results that way. If you can, dig into all of the well-tempered clavier and you're 30 and you're just getting back into piano and you're insisting I'm gonna play all of Bach. It's like, okay, go, yes, I wanna see it. I wanna hear you play. But I would have a lot of questions.
That makes sense.
Yeah. We work on one or two pieces at a time. I always like to keep it more than one, but definitely less than 5. That's my advice to adult students, is just keep it simple.
Sure. Before we're done chatting, how old are you?
I am 29 and a half, as the kids always say.
Okay, so you're almost 30. And you're done with this certificate. You've been in Chicago. You've been performing a lot, teaching a lot. What does the next musical journey look like for you? What are you interested in? What are you studying? What are you practicing for your personal practice? What are you learning right now?
Great question. One which is at the heart of every pianist and musician. We're always thinking about what's our program. At least that was my experience. And it gets complicated as you get older because your repertoire grows larger and you have all these plans and all these people that you like to play with, and you're not always 100% sure what's your top focus right now. But for me, I'm lucky to keep it simple right now. I have a solo program that I've just been loving putting together. Just picking the repertoire of this program has taken me several years. Not that it's anything particularly special about this program, but I wanted something that I can kind of just hold on to at any time and just have it in my back pocket. And these pieces, I'm very excited about them because I've searched far and wide in the world of piano repertoire. I've heard so much great music, played pieces I hadn't even ever thought about and composers I hadn't even thought about. I've gotten to hear them live on stage, and it makes you wonder, well, I could play that, but like with this composer, and what if this composer wrote a piece like that? Is this key related to that key? And you just grow over the years, and all of a sudden you've got this program, and you've shifted this piece over or cut this piece and added this collection of pieces instead. It's super fun. It's super fun for me to think about, and this follows off of a huge project that I just finished last year, which is not, well, it's unfinished, okay? So it's a project that's ongoing, but the main groundwork has been done. I performed 3 piano concerti back to back to back several times, both in North Dakota and in Chicago last year, and the goal of that project is eventually to one day record these pieces, and that is proving to be a long-term goal. It's not a simple endeavor whatsoever. And
Well, you're young. Got time.
there's time, and I'm not getting worse as I keep practicing, and that's what I keep telling the kids. I keep telling the adults, just, you're not getting worse, okay? Practicing, and I tell this to all the kids out there, okay? The reason why we practice every day is not because we get worse if we don't. It's because we can get ahead. Practicing 2 days a week is definitely maintenance. You can take 2 months. If you're a college student and you're struggling, like, I just can't feel the urge to practice right now, I've taken months off, okay? Arthur Rubinstein will tell you you can't take a day off. It's true, okay, if you're Arthur Rubinstein. But I've taken a week off here and there, and your piano playing will just get happier and more comfortable and better. It's not a big deal.
Well, we have to process it. We have to sleep on it. There's so many things going on in the brain, and that we'll save that for another time. But yeah, what you're talking about is not too dissimilar from, let's say you're a sophomore kid in high school and you just studied all this material for 4 months, and now you took summer vacation and you're growing still and you're developing, and you're processing information even when you're not thinking about it, and you're making connections and you're growing, and it's the same with piano. Absolutely. Some of it just takes time.
When you need to get ahead and you need to get on top of your responsibilities, that's why you practice. But we got to find the routine. You got to keep it daily. Another great analogy, piano practicing is like brushing your teeth. You do it twice a day, and you don't just do it really, really hard before you have to go to the dentist. So many people try and do that.
That's a really good one.
For me, it's about consistency, finding the time, finding the desire to practice, and finding opportunities to showcase the stuff that I am working on, and more importantly, spreading the message, spreading love. That's what I spend the majority of my time in music doing now, is helping young kids achieve their dreams, achieve their little piano dreams they didn't even know they had, helping them find their piano dreams.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would have liked to talk about or end with?
Let's talk pianos.
Okay.
What's your favorite piano you got in the store right now, Josh?
In the store. In Grand Forks or in Sioux Falls? Or both?
I'll leave it open-ended.
Well, we have the Yamaha CFX concert grand piano in stock.
Is that really your favorite?
I mean, it's special. It's a 9-foot concert grand, and it's nicest materials, very unique experience. But yeah, is it my favorite?
Let's put it this way. Is there a piano that you have right now that should get more attention than it's getting?
Well, not everyone knows about Yamaha's SX series, and I really do like the SX series. I mean, just sitting a few feet away from us is the S5X. Only played it a couple times, that specific piano, and I like its personality. I think I like the S6X or S7X the most, personally, in between getting to play quite a few different models of that one. We just don't have it well, we do have the S7X in stock. Yep, it's way up there though.
Yeah.
I mean, those are premium pricey instruments, so they should be, appreciated. And yeah, I would say either the CFX or the S7X.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite places to practice when I'm in Grand Forks, I come here to Popplers Music, and they're always so great to give me the space and time to just kind of play for a little while.
Oh, absolutely.
You're
welcome anytime.
I have yet to overstay my welcome, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be an interesting thing to try and do. You're welcome anytime.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for the chat.
It's my absolute
Thanks for
pleasure.
all you do for teaching kids and pursuing music, and thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks for tuning into the Popplers Music Podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and reminded you why your work matters. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe. Share it with a fellow educator or musician and leave us a review. It helps more music lovers find us. For more resources, sheet music, instruments, and support for your program, visit us at popplersmusic.com. Until next time.